Welcome, guys, to an episode with the Doomed Hell. Today, we're going to be talking about a pretty cool build concept that I thought about over the last couple days. So, I've been interested in building a mini PC with a actual graphics card. This was for my own purposes as kind of like a Quake box, so something that could play Quake, CS2, Tarkov, running, like 1080p and medium settings, just something that can run esports. And I've been looking at mini PCs, and I think the number one problem is that you get a lot of CPU in some of these high-end PCs, but not quite that much GPU. And that's definitely because of the form factor. It's also just what you can do with what you have here. But there are many good deals. For instance, like getting 113090H here for $500. That's not a bad deal, given that you get Thunderbolt. So in a situation like this, I wouldn't mind running an external GPU, but of course that would be pretty cumbersome when you're talking about a little LAN box that you could go to your friend's house and things like that. So the one that I've been really interested in is actually the Elite Desk series of tiny computers. They're basically thin clients that have big CPUs in them, and they allow you to basically run very high-end compute power whilst being, really tiny, that you can basically hide under your desk. But the thing is that of course you're still limited with what you have. And so I decided that I'd be kind of interested, or I think it'd be kind of interesting to 3D print a full-fledged gaming PC bracket, kind of like this, running an SF PSU in the bottom here, which would usually be limited to 600 to 850 watts, and then using an Elite Desk motherboard as your base. So the Elite Desk motherboard has pretty similar screws setup as Mini ITX. And the G5, which is the one we're looking at right now, is very, very cheap. That's a G4. But the G4 will support later CPUs as well. So the point of using one of these instead of potentially using an older one is that you will have support for a full-fledged CPU. So I'll give you an example here. Say I buy this, which is $40, and I decide to run, I need to run SODIMM RAM, so let's look that up. Hold on a sec, boys. So here we look up DDR4 SODIMM. So, if you ran like, say, 8 gigabytes, or better yet, 16 gigabytes. So here you would get a 2x8 kit, which is $43 or $44, let's say. CL15, so it's low latency. Obviously, not the fastest RAM on the market, but that doesn't really matter right now. You'd be running the $40 plus $44. Then you could get something like this, which is an i9-9900 T ES, or you could potentially even run a i7-9700, which is just about the same, about $200. So you get a printed out case, and then you would just be missing your SFX power supply for the GPU. So let's say you get this one, the SF750, or you could even get a 550 watt, because the reality is that this board already has a power connector, so you could run an external power brick. You'd have to save up for that. And running the GPU, how you would do it is you would have a bracket, so you need a M.22 PACIe bracket. No needs to be for GPU PCIe. There it is. Bracket like this, which gives you full x16. Obviously, you're going to be limited to your speed, so I wouldn't suggest this for a RTX 3090 per se, but you could basically run one of these, have it set up in a way which works for your regular bracket here, so you could plug it in on, hold on. So you could have it where your motherboard is here. Oh, sorry. Your motherboard, better yet. So it's kind of like a squarish motherboard. And then your M.2 is right here. And you need space just to have one bend right here. So you just flip it on its side so it would look like this. And you'd have your PCIe. So whether that's a 50 centimeters or 25, I'm not sure, but I do know that it would definitely work quite well in this situation. And it would just give you a slot that you could use for a bracket for your GPU. Now, what kind of GPU would I run with this? Well, anything ITX size. So say you could go with like a RTX 4060 ITX size. Like that would work just fine, $400 GPU. This would probably be like your upper end. Like I wouldn't run a TI, that would probably be pretty badly buffered off. You know, a good one is the 6500 XT. That's a pretty basic one that is relatively cheap usually. Or even the 7600 that just came out, or the 7600 XT, which is coming out. Sorry, I forgot that it hasn't come out just yet, but it is coming out. So this will be pretty interesting little card to run in this. And you know, if you're worried about, like, let's say you want to go on a trip or whatever it may be, you could quite easily just wrap this in some sort of like casing. Like for instance, some people use cardboard, or you could potentially use like some sort of plastic, like acrylic, and that'd be totally fine because all of this would hold quite well on the bracket. Fan wise, you know, you could use anything you want, and because you're running SO-DIMMs, you could even extend, you could have like quite a large cooler and it would really not matter. If you look right here, like there's quite a lot of space here. There's really nothing that would hinder that. VRMs wise, you should be able to run a 9700 or a 9900T. If you wanted something a little bit more powerful, which honestly I wouldn't really suggest, like a 9900K really has no point in this kind of setup, just because even if you did want to overclock, you would be really limited by the VRMs. But let's say you did, then you would just run a VRM heatsink. You would just buy a heatsink, put the thermal pads. So you do get front I/O. You get two Type-Cs, and I believe, oh, you get your audio here. And then you get also a little bit of back I/O, but really the main benefit is that you can also get a Thunderbolt card out of one of these. So there's this cute little rinky-dink Thunderbolt, and I'm not sure how it works, but I do know that it exists, and it does fit on the motherboard somewhere. You know, it might be like this, or that doesn't even look like a connector, but there must be, oh, I think actually it is. You would take out this VGA and then you would just replace it with this little rinky-dink thing. So that'd be pretty cool. And overall, I think this would be a pretty good build. If we calculate real quick, like the overall price, it would be $40 for the board, $44 for the RAM, $200 for the 9700, and then let's say we get a nice little graphics card like the 7600, you would be looking at, you know, $700 on top of the power supply. So it's a very nice little build for this kind of price. Very tiny, portable, easy to build, and generally speaking, it's going to do you just fine for most gamers. So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed and have a great day.